Are being assessed.
Public health experts said it was coming here, we needed to plan ahead, and so that's what we've been doing.
With new COVID-19 cases in Ontario, how transit providers are working to help keep the disease from spreading. The new cases are all in the GTA, and they come after a weekend that saw the province's case count take a significant jump. Ontario health officials announcing 3 new cases today. There are now 18 cases of COVID-19 in the province. All are in people who traveled to China, Iran, or Egypt, or in family members of those people. That has caused some in the GTA's Iranian community to worry about loved ones stuck back home in Iran. We'll start there tonight. Kelda Ewan has the details.
Nahid Hussein Zada Barjandi calls her husband Madad in Iran many times a day.
How's it going there? How are you? How are things?
It's not really good situation.
It has been a stressful couple of weeks for the couple.
There is very complicated situation every morning. Actually, nowadays I cannot sleep.
Madad arrived in Iran in mid-February. Shortly after, the country began reporting a surge of COVID-19 infections. Now, with many borders closed and international flights canceled, he's stuck.
And today I was keeping in touch with 5 agencies in Iran, and even here, the travel agency that provide our ticket, he said all is full. And we don't know, some of them is so expensive, between $5,000 to $7,000 like that.
She contacted Global Affairs, which told her the government is not assisting Canadians out of Iran at this time. Hamid Garajeh and Ali Reza Haidari are leaders in the close-knit Iranian community.
Definitely, the feeling is really frightened.
They say even those who have managed to fly home were surprised at the lack of screening at the airport.
They know they're coming from Iran, but no questions or no quarantine or no testing.
This afternoon, that changed. The Canadian government is now asking all passengers from Iran to isolate themselves for 14 days, though many have taken it upon themselves to do that.
If they need any help, of course, we'll be helping.
Meanwhile, with Persian New Year coming up in a few weeks, they are also warning their community of the risk of holding large celebrations.
Right now, over this last weekend, we were informed that at least I'm aware of 3 different events that got canceled.
Back in Thornhill, Nahid says she won't stop trying until her husband makes it home.
I'm lack of energy nowadays, but I'm a kind of person never give up, and I keep continue, and hopefully receive a good news very soon. I love you. Bye.
Kelda Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
Now, so far, it doesn't appear the virus that causes COVID-19 is spreading locally, and health officials want to keep it that way. Ali Shahsan joins us live from near King and John tonight. And Ali, both the TTC and GO playing a role here.
That's right, and we're really seeing the TTC take initiative here in increasing their end-of-the-line cleaning. So that means when streetcars or subway cars go out of service at the end of the night, all of the surfaces inside those cars get scrubbed down and sanitized, including the hand straps and the handrails. And they are also considering using this new antimicrobial spray that Metrolinx is now using for their entire GO fleet.
Our transit infrastructure is getting a scrub down.
So one of the things that we piloted a few weeks ago was a new long-acting antimicrobial agent for our trains. The pilot was extremely successful. And what it means is that the surfaces on a train or a bus stay cleaner longer. And that's important when you're dealing with something like coronavirus. So we are now applying it to all of our trains and buses. That's something brand new for us.
Over the weekend, Metrolinx issued a warning to passengers who traveled on the same bus as one of the recent positive patients. That was out of an abundance of caution because, as we're learning, it takes more than just sitting close to someone to contract COVID-19.
We're continuing to see that even with all our ones. We're doing the mandates on the flights. We continue to go after those 2 seats back, 2 seats forward, and all the ones so far have been negative.
But if you're worried about catching COVID-19 in a crowded area, you should know this.
There is some debate on whether this could possibly have an airborne component. That has not been by any means shown. It's just something that people worry about. But right now, everything suggests that it's really person-to-person, close face-to-face contact.
Still though, as a precaution and on the advice of Toronto Public Health, busy places like Scotiabank Arena, city centres and big malls are installing more of these hand sanitizer stands.
Today, Public Health confirmed 3 new cases of COVID-19, bringing the total in Ontario to 18. All are travel related, except
We have 2 who have no travel history, but they're related to close family contacts.
emphasis on close, people within 1 meter of each other for extended periods of time in a closed space. The advice for the public in the meantime, if you find yourself in a crowded mall or subway car.
Of course, no one likes someone standing next to you and who's starting hacking and coughing. Cough etiquette's very important.
So we are not at the phase yet where we're seeing big sports events canceled by MLSE at Scotiabank Arena, but you may start seeing fewer people going for a handshake and instead opting for an elbow bump. Dwight.
Thank you, Ali. Now, Iran, along with Japan, South Korea, and Italy, are the countries with the greatest concern for the World Health Organization. Though today, the WHO said the spread of the coronavirus is changing.
In the last 24 hours, there were almost 9 times more cases reported outside China than inside China.
Worldwide, more than 89,000 cases have been reported in 61 countries. There have been more than 3,000 deaths. That includes 6 deaths in Washington state, right on the Canadian border. Officials there are now reporting 18 cases of COVID-19. Several are connected to a single long-term care facility in suburban Seattle. Officials have declared a local health emergency, and a number of schools have been closed, and there are concerns the virus may have been circulating undetected for as long as 6 weeks. In total, there are almost 100 coronavirus cases in 10 states in the U.S. After last week's steep losses, the markets clawed back today. The TSX ending the day up 290 points, its best day in 14 months. And the Dow soared nearly 1,300 points, the largest gain since 2009, but they are still well off highs set just over a week ago. Fears around the coronavirus have forced the closure of one of the world's most popular museums, the Louvre. We'll have more on that coming up for you in about 10 minutes. A CBC investigation has found problems in Canada's growing surrogacy industry. In Canada, it's illegal to pay a surrogate, but you can reimburse her for pregnancy expenses. That has created a series of issues with families going down that path. Chris Glover has been looking into this, and he joins us now with more. Chris, you found several families who found the vulnerability. It left them paying more than they feel they should have.
Yeah, what we've found is that there's a serious lack of transparency in the surrogacy industry, and that is leaving parents at risk of potentially paying more than they should have, and also at risk of getting in trouble with the law for it.
Since I can remember, I wanted kids.
For Anna Camille Tucci, a baby almost didn't happen. In 2017, she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. But this past December, a surrogate delivered her son. Tucci agreed to reimburse her a monthly maximum of nearly $2,000 for pregnancy expenses.
We thought that though she would never really actually meet that max.
But the surrogate did every month. Tucci had paid an agency to handle the process and the money. Canadian Fertility Consulting, or CFC. This expense breakdown is all she could get.
This kind of made us think, wow, where is all this money coming from?
With categories like $700 monthly paid out for groceries.
You know, the two of us together, I don't think we spend that much.
CFC's policy is to provide receipts after the birth. Canadian law says reimbursements must be pregnancy related, or those paying could face 10 years in prison and a $500,000 fine.
No one wants to be in a situation where they're caught doing things that they weren't supposed to be doing without even knowing.
We found 4 other families who used CFC services and have similar concerns. One father paid $5,000 for his surrogate's expenses, even though she miscarried in the first month.
Oh, a lottery ticket.
We reviewed his surrogate's receipts with his lawyer and found a lottery ticket, duplicates, and many dated before he'd met his surrogate.
This is not playing within the rules, so it's putting everybody at risk.
A former CFC surrogate whose voice we've disguised says the agency encouraged her to submit as many receipts as possible.
You just save all of your receipts from the second you're matched. Doesn't matter. anything you save it. So it's a little shady, like a lot shady.
CFC's owner, Leah Swanberg, is the only person in Canada to have been charged with paying surrogates. She pleaded guilty in 2013 and paid a $60,000 fine. In an initial interview, Swanberg said she now has 6 employees reviewing receipts.
I will not take that risk for any client or any surrogate. And so I am extremely diligent with my team.
But later refused to address specific allegations we found.
It puts us in such a vulnerable situation because, again, at the end of the day, all we want is that baby, and we'll do anything for it.
So, Dwight, new federal regulations are coming into place in June, but they won't necessarily fix the problems that we've found here. They will introduce a new declaration form that will need to be signed in relation to these expenses. But the thing is, the parents still won't have mandatory access to those receipts prior to their money going out. And that was really the crux of the problems that we found.
They want to know exactly where it's being spent. Now, this is all part of a CBC series called Baby Business. And you have another installment for us tomorrow.
Yeah, so today we looked at those vulnerabilities that the parents were under. Tomorrow we look at the vulnerabilities that the surrogates themselves are under. And specifically in that regard, we're looking at the medical vulnerabilities that these women are undertaking as they're doing such an important thing for families out there.
Look forward to that piece tomorrow. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Dwight.
After more than a year and a half of packing and moving around, tenants at 650 Parliament are finally starting to go back home. An electrical fire forced more than 1,500 people to leave their units in August 2018. Well, today, a handful of residents have started to reoccupy those units. Nick Bover has more from Moving Day.
He's been waiting on this day for about 19 months, but Peter Gondos isn't all the way happy.
The problem is we gotta, do all this when it shouldn't have happened in the first place.
In August 2018, a massive electrical fire ripped through the high-rise at 650 Parliament. The flames touched every floor of the building, forcing out nearly 1,500 residents. Gondos and his wife cycled through 4 temporary homes after the fire.
It's been very stressful over the last bunch of years. Months, not years. Feels like years, though, actually.
Today, they were among the first residents to move back after a $60 million repair job.
You've certainly never seen remediation, a reconstruction job of this size in the city's history, nor I think have you ever seen 1,500 people needing to return home.
Mayor John Tory commended those displaced tenants.
They are people that have exhibited a patience and an understanding of something that went beyond their control, it went beyond the city's control.
But the city is trying to get ahead and prevent similar disasters at aging apartments, like the one at 260 Wellesley last spring. After that incident, Toronto announced a plan to inspect the electrical systems at 14 buildings with similar designs and equipment. At 650 Parliament, those systems have been gutted and replaced. Inside the units themselves, there's more work to make the place feel like home again.
There's still a lot of things that need work, and we're going to have to repaint completely, but, it's part of the process, and we'll just make it happen.
Their neighbors will join them over the next 12 weeks. The landlord wants to space out that process, allowing up to 8 units to move back every day. Nick Boisvert, CBC News, Toronto.
A 36-year-old man is the city's latest murder victim, left for dead this morning outside a North York healthcare center. Detectives have identified the victim as Rohan Rowe. This afternoon, they released surveillance video showing the victim being left at the scene by 3 people in a dark-colored sedan. Rowe was later found by police outside the former Humber River Hospital site, which doesn't have an emergency department. Investigators say he had several gunshot wounds. Police are hoping more surveillance video can help them track down the people who fled.
Any video that people do have in the area, if they could, we're going to be canvassing, but if they do have video, again, it's around shortly after 2 o'clock this morning in this area here, they can provide it to Toronto Police Homicide Squad.
Homicide investigators want to speak to anyone who was in contact with Rowe over the last few days. City crews cleared out a downtown homeless encampment today. The move coming after these makeshift shelters have been the scene of a number of fires recently, including a large fire over the weekend underneath the Gardner. Nelly Kalada has more.
It's a crushing blow and deeply personal.
Get out of here, bro. Get the out of here, bro.
It's like me coming in saying, I'm going to kick in your door and take all your stuff. Sorry about your luck.
As city crews clear out a homeless encampment under the Gardiner Expressway, once again, Nicole and others are forced to pack up their life.
You know, some of us have been through some hard stuff, and it's been really hard.
City officials say they have no choice. There have been 3 fires at homeless encampments so far this year.
One of the reasons we clear encampments is for this very reason, because of the threat of fire.
This fire happened on the weekend. The blaze so intense, part of the on-ramp has melted off the concrete and a structural engineer has been brought in.
The fires are believed to be caused by people trying to stay warm, a literal flare signaling a continuing problem in the city.
There are increasingly large numbers of people who are working people. They are people that have good, secure jobs. But with the success of our respective cities, it is becoming difficult for them financially to find a place to live, and that is not good for the city.
According to PadMapper, a website that tracks listing, the median rent for a 1-bedroom now in the city is $2,200. The city has a 10-year plan to increase affordable housing. By the end of 2020, an additional 300 units are expected to be available. Not soon enough for those here.
I used to live in an apartment, and I'm here now because I can't afford it. I'm on welfare. Where the am I going to afford $1,800?
We have been working with them to come into shelter, to come into respite, to look at affordable housing options that may be available. All have declined those offers of service.
Nicole says she doesn't feel safe in a shelter. So like others, she says she's trapped in a cycle with no easy fix.
Just keep kicking us out, and then we have to find a new place to live. Then they'll come kick us out of there, and then we have to. So then we'll go back to the last spot we were at, and then so it's just a moving game. They keep moving us. We have what, 20 minutes?
Natalie Collada, CBC News, Toronto.
The Mona Lisa, a little lonely today as the world's busiest museum is closed again due to coronavirus concerns. More on that after the break. Plus, we take a first look at your weather forecast for the week. Stay with us. We are back in just a few minutes. Coronavirus is affecting arts and culture around the world. In the past few weeks, film releases have been postponed, concerts have been canceled, and for the second day in a row, the Louvre in Paris is closed. Yelena Adzik joins us now, and Yelena, it's common to see long lines of tourists outside of that iconic glass pyramid, but right now, no one is getting in.
No one. So this is a really interesting time that we're living in when you think of all the ways that it's affected. I'm going to give you a look right now at yesterday because you saw the people there. They thought they were getting in, Dwight, and then they got the announcement from the Louvre officials saying that due to a staff meeting that we are having to discuss our strategy about how to deal with this situation, should it get any worse, that's why we're closing it. But it'll open up again, but it didn't. And then today it didn't open again. And we had the statement that came out. Here's a look at the Spartan atmosphere. Really not a lot of people around. And the statement came out saying that today is a management meetings. And so that pretty much lasted all throughout the day too. There you go, an informational meeting on the public health situation linked to the virus prevention measures. They said it's delayed the opening of the Louvre. They said it's not going to open today. And then you can see this one little statement, the museum cannot open at the moment. So yeah, this is something that a lot of people, especially when you're coming from far away, maybe you don't even have a chance to see it. I know, that does happen.
Yes.
And so, you know, the Mona Lisa is the big one that everybody always wants to come see. And so this meme has been circulating, Dwight.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, so not a good look. Not a good look.
And we're learning a famous work by Van Gogh.
You got to listen to this. This
is
also
incredible. Quarantine?
It's actually a bunch of works. So we're talking about 50 works. Never left Europe before. And they were on their way to Japan for an exhibit. And the officials there said, you know what, we can't take a chance with everything happening there. We're not going to have it. So they held it in quarantine. The art is actually in quarantine in a separate special spot of the museum. This is the Japanese National Museum for Western Art. I'm going to give you a look at one of the most famous pieces, of course, sunflowers. So this is what we're talking about here, that, you know, not only is it the first time that it left Europe, but it's the first time in a really long time that no one's seeing it. These sunflowers are not getting any sun. So it's just really kind of it's surprising, and more than just the fact that, you know, people are, this is quite serious and their health is at risk. But when you talk about arts and culture, I think what it really signifies is sort of a shifting of normalcy. This is part of life. This is what people do, what they enjoy. So it really is getting into every aspect of our lives.
It really is.
And, you know, Dwight, I wanted to mention that CBC, we did reach out to some of the Canadian museums, and here's just a quick look at what was said by the ROM today. Just what are you doing? Of course, a different circumstance, fewer people visit, and it's not the same, but still, they essentially said that they've been advised that the risk is still low. They continue to monitor the situation. They've actually put a lot of hand sanitizers everywhere. And last but not least, they said it's business as usual for the AGO. So there you go.
Continue to monitor.
Yes.
Thank you, Yelena.
See you soon, Dwight.
Ryan Snodden here with you in the Weather Center in for Colette, and boy, what a day we had in terms of temperatures. All that snow that fell a few days ago really starting to take a hit after these mild temperatures into the double digits in southwestern Ontario. Most of the GTA in those mid-single digits for today, and that rain from earlier is now clearing away out towards eastern Ontario and into Quebec, and we're starting to see some clearing skies. A pretty quiet night overall tonight, but we've got more shower activity on the way as we roll into tomorrow. And here's how things are playing out. There's that back line of that shower activity moving out. Pretty quiet, as I said, through tonight. We'll see the clouds building in as we roll into tomorrow morning. And then we've got some showers that are going to be rolling in late morning, certainly into the afternoon. Do count on a damp commute home for tomorrow, as that shower activity will likely linger into the early evening hours. And then we're talking about into Wednesday morning, slight chance of a wet flurry. Overall, though, Wednesday into Thursday looking pretty quiet. And then we've got our next weather maker tracking in, and this is the one that we'll be talking about all week long. Potential for some snow on the way for not only Friday morning, but throughout the day on Friday. And we'll take a closer look at that with your full 7-day forecast coming up in just a few minutes.
The weather update is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Tomorrow is Super Tuesday south of the border. More than a third of all delegates are up for grabs in a race that's narrowing to just 2 candidates. More on that after the break. But first, Is the Doug Ford government ignoring the results of its own consultation on education changes? The data shows teachers, students, parents, pretty much everyone consulted disagrees with the province's plan on class sizes and mandatory e-learning. What Premier Ford has to say about that, coming up next. The results of public consultations launched by the Ford government show an overwhelming majority of people don't support larger class sizes. It is a key point of contention as unions and the province are locked in labor negotiations. This as the government has repeatedly refused to release the results of that report. Lisa Shing has more.
At a mining conference in Toronto today, Premier Doug Ford was peppered with questions while announcing a partnership with 2 First Nations on an access road to the Ring of Fire, a huge mining development in northern Ontario. Ford talked about education negotiations between unions and the province.
We're out there every single day listening to the parents and what the parents are telling me, they want a fair deal.
But the opposition is questioning whether the government is listening, despite repeatedly saying it is.
The government has listened to those we serve. We've listened to parents and students.
Today, the NDP released results of a government consultation that saw 7,000 submissions from the public, including teachers, parents, and students. 70% were against bigger class sizes. Initially, the government increased the class size average from 22 to 28. After opposition, it backtracked and boosted the average to just 25. The results also found there wasn't a lot of support for mandatory online courses.
I hope that now that they've been embarrassed maybe into having to admit what people told them in that consultation, maybe they will reverse their cuts. I certainly hope so. They refused to share the results of that consultation because they knew that it contradicts with the path they've chosen.
The teachers themselves.
The Premier maintains that's not what's stalling negotiations.
But we aren't going to roll over like we've seen over the last 15 years. Of billions and billions of dollars and extra bonuses, signing bonuses and pizza lunches and everything else that the previous government gave the teachers.
The elementary teachers have recently escalated job action while English Catholic teachers prepare for a one-day strike across the province on Thursday, the same day as some high school teachers will strike as discussions continue. Lisa Sheng, CBC News, Toronto.
Now, at that same news conference, Premier Doug Ford fired back at reporters when asked about the province's problematic new license plates.
You got to be kidding me, Colin. You got to be kidding. We sent a press release Friday just for these folks that can't believe what I deal with this media here in Toronto. We've given them a press release on Friday. We gave you the details. It's being corrected. We're going to have good license plates. But we're here to talk about an historic investment that this province and this country hasn't seen.
The Premier was asked what specifically was wrong with the plates that hit the road last month. The license plates were flagged by police officers and drivers as being difficult to read at night. Today, Ford said the issue is being corrected by the manufacturer and that there will be zero expense to taxpayers. The Prime Minister was in the city today with a message for the business community. His government understands the importance of the resource sector to the Canadian economy. Justin Trudeau was speaking at that same mining convention the Premier was at after weeks of rail and road blockades across Canada in support of Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs who oppose a natural gas pipeline through their traditional territory in BC.
Mining has long been a fundamental building block of our economy. Mineral production happens in every Canadian province and territory. Workers have often told me, this is the kind of job I can raise a family on, the kinds of opportunities that keep our young people in our town, the kinds of projects that lift up entire communities, including many Indigenous communities. And that's why our government wants to keep our mining sector strong and growing.
Mayor John Tory had a special visitor today, the Mayor of Chicago.
If you turn it around, and you are the, as I understand it, the 56th Mayor of Chicago, so we have Lightfoot 56, and it's a Blue Jays jersey, and I've understood that the mayor is a bit of a baseball fan. Her loyalties are understood, but perhaps a bit misguided.
After exchanging jerseys, the two mayors met for a closed-door discussion to talk about a number of issues, including gun violence and housing. The pair also spoke about their city's relationship and how each mayor can work with and learn from each other.
We do have a lot of things in common, from some of the things that we're trying to do to really improve the quality of life of our residents and also the business connections. There's a lot of intersectionality there. What I hope, and really I credit Mayor Tory for this, you can come to these kinds of meetings and learn best practices, but really the key is going to be in the follow-up.
When I came to office, we had scads of these relationships, and as far as I could tell, there wasn't a lot of what you were talking about that was actually happening. And I said I'm quite determined to change that, especially as regards Chicago, which I think is one of our longest standing relationships, and for good reason, because of the proximity of the cities, the similarities they show in size and scope of the economy.
As part of their meeting, Mayor Tory also took Mayor Lightfoot on a tour of Regent Park. The race to become the Democratic presidential nominee is closer than ever before. Former Vice President Joe Biden seems to have locked down some key endorsements ahead of the crucial Super Tuesday vote. As he tries to catch the frontrunner Bernie Sanders, another player may upend this race. Katie Simpson explains.
Michael Bloomberg is about to find out if his unconventional campaign is resonating. The former New York City mayor's name will be on the ballot tomorrow for the very first time as voters in 14 states go to the polls for Super Tuesday.
I've won 3 elections so far. I don't plan to start losing now.
Bloomberg met with volunteers in suburban Virginia today, vowing to stay in the race as the field narrows. Senator Amy Klobuchar suspended her campaign, as did former Mayor Pete Buttigieg. Both are expected to endorse Joe Biden.
I talked to Mayor Pete and to Amy Klobuchar. Both talked to Pete earlier today and Amy just a little while ago. And I wish them all the best. I thought both of them behaved themselves, is a nice way to phrase it, but they represented their country and their states very well. And I felt sorry for them, but I'm in it to win it.
Bloomberg has long been seen by some voters as a backup candidate, a high-profile option for moderate Democrats if Biden's campaign faltered.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, South Carolina!
But with his enormous win on Saturday in South Carolina, the former vice president is finally catching up to frontrunner Bernie Sanders.
I just want Trump, Schlump, Glump to be history November, whatever, 2020.
Bloomberg supporters are unfazed by the evolving race, though some would not be surprised if he's thinking long and hard about the future of his candidacy.
And I feel he'll make the right decision. I feel he makes the best decisions besides making the right decision.
Michael Bloomberg has been polling well in key states, including California, Texas, and right here in Virginia. It could be enough to split the moderate vote between him and Joe Biden, paving the way for Bernie Sanders to have a very big night. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Manassas, Virginia.
A little bit of everything on the menu as we roll through the next couple of days. We've got some mild days ahead, no question about that. More in the plus side than certainly below zero, so that's great. Some unsettled weather, though. This unsettled pattern will continue. A little bit of sunshine on the menu, but some showers too. And then, yeah, all eyes on Friday with the potential for some snow working into the region. So first things first, let's show you the satellite and radar, and that is the back edge of that rain that's been falling today moving out. We've got a clearing pocket in behind, but quickly we'll build the clouds in and show more showers moving in for tomorrow ahead of this next weather maker that's going to be tracking in. So here's how things are going to play out. We can see for your hour by hour, temperatures will be dropping below the freezing mark north of the GTA tonight, where the skies will be more clear, and looking at the clouds lingering pretty thick through the GTA down the Golden Horseshoe, no question about that. We'll see temperatures ranging around the freezing mark for the Golden Horseshoe, and again as cold as -5 north of the GTA tonight. So a little bit of windshield scraping to go on, no question, for tomorrow morning. As we roll throughout the day, you'll note the clouds again building back in. Looks like a pretty solid chance of showers by lunchtime tomorrow, and then a better chance as we roll into the afternoon. Could even see a few wet flakes mixing in over the higher elevations, Niagara Escarpment. And then as we move into the commute time tomorrow, again, plan on more showers for the drive home and the walk home for tomorrow, no question. And into tomorrow evening, then we'll start to clear things out. Daytime highs tomorrow will get into the 4 and 5 degree range. Winds in from the northeast, sustained 5 to 10 with some gusts to 15, so not overly concerned about the winds tomorrow, but it's certainly going to be a damp day, so don't forget the umbrella as you head out the door for tomorrow morning. Now, looking into the long range, we are talking about that wave moving out. We've got a chance of a wet flurry mixed with a shower through primarily Wednesday morning, clearing skies into the afternoon, and certainly a nice day setting up for Thursday. That'll be the best day of the week in terms of the skies, and then we're talking about that next weather maker tracking in for Friday. And that does look set to bring some snowfall throughout the day on Friday. Again, the devil will be in the details with this one in terms of timing, the exact track. All that remains to be seen. We've got a few days to obviously hone in on that. But all that said, if you have some travel plans on Friday, stay tuned to the forecast as we will get more detail on that, and that is certainly going to be one to watch. But a couple of nice days. As I said, that early morning chance of a flurry or a shower on Wednesday, clearing into the afternoon. Thursday looks good too, and Saturday looks great as well. So only really Friday to be concerned about at this point. Dwight?
This weather update is brought to you by Fairmont Le Chateau Frontenac, the best location for your next spring break getaway in Quebec City.
Sunnybrook Hospital received its largest single philanthropic donation today. How much and what it will be used for coming up, plus why costly life-saving cancer medication is being thrown out.
What people don't realize is that wastage is actually a real cost that's borne by probably the provinces or hospitals or ultimately the taxpayers.
More than $100 million wasted. We have the details in our latest Go Public investigation for you after the break. Sunnybrook Hospital getting more than $16 million today to establish a focused ultrasound initiative.
The money aims to help the team here at Sunnybrook turn their incredibly promising research and technology into a potentially life-saving therapy to treat devastating brain disorders.
It is being described as the largest single philanthropic contribution to focused ultrasound research in the world. It's hoped this will revolutionize treatment of brain disorders such as Alzheimer's disease, brain cancer, and ALS.
It's going to make focused ultrasound possible for many more people. It will eliminate the need for MRI scans that we are using today. It also will enable us to multiple treatments simultaneously, that meaning that we can cover diseases we don't usually do.
The money from the Western Foundation will make up about half of the total cost of the hospital's focused ultrasound initiative. Costly cancer drugs are being thrown out on a regular basis because of the way the medications are packaged. Researchers say it's costing the healthcare system and taxpayers millions of dollars a year. Rosa Marcatelli with our Go Public unit has the details.
This is the medication that I ended up having to get from the pharmacy.
Medication that costs almost $8,000 per vial.
I thought to myself, wow, am I ever glad I'm a Canadian? Am I ever glad that I don't have to put out of pocket for this?
The price was surprising enough until Deb Hebert had the drug injected by a nurse and realized her dose only required about 3/4 of what was in the vial. The rest was thrown out and a new vial opened the next day for her second dose. The remainder of that one thrown out too. Hebert is on leave from her job in finance at CBC while she battles non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. This researcher says millions of dollars worth of cancer drugs are being wasted because drug makers only distribute the medications in one-size-fits-all vials that hold too much for most patients. Leftovers are often tossed over concerns about sharing vials and a short shelf life.
What people don't realize is that wastage is actually a real cost that's borne by probably the provinces or hospitals or ultimately the taxpayers.
He worked on a study that looked at 12 high-priced injectable cancer drugs. It found $102 million worth of medication is being wasted over a 3-year period. One solution, says this drug policy researcher, is to force drug makers to produce different vial sizes to reduce waste. The UK did that 4 years ago and is now saving millions a year in drug costs.
It's appalling that, again, we have so many demands on our healthcare dollars for drugs and doctors and hospitals and so on, to see this kind of waste.
He says the group that negotiates prescription drug prices in Canada has to make different vial sizes part of the deal when choosing which drugs to buy. But the Pan-Canadian Pharmaceutical Alliance won't say if it does that, only that negotiations are confidential at the request of the manufacturer. Sanofi, which makes Hebert's medication, says it sells the drugs in one vial size because it's a typical dose for the majority of the patient population when you take spillage into account. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Calgary.
The Canadian Competition Bureau says Canadians lost over $98 million to fraud in 2019. That is why it's partnering with Toronto Police and companies like Interact for Fraud Prevention Month.
Fraud does not know any barriers with respect to age, gender, socioeconomic levels, intellect, or cultural groups.
Police hope this annual campaign will allow Canadians to recognize, reject, and report instances of fraud. During the month, different events will happen across the city to raise awareness. Police say it's all about working together to fight fraud. If you're feeling priced out of the housing market here in the GTA, Macadam, New Brunswick may be the answer you're looking for. It's a small town with big ambitions. Now it's something of a real estate hotspot. Harry Forrestal looks at why.
Rhonda Cole has never been so busy, risking the ice in high heels for a real estate market that's red hot, drawing buyers from far and wide.
Since January 1st, I think I did the count this morning, and I think there's 9 that have sold just since then. Last year, the numbers were up significantly. This is my newest listing in Macadam. People are coming from Ontario. I've sold to Vancouver, Texas, as you've probably heard.
Okay, it isn't Toronto or Vancouver. This is Macadam, a once vibrant rail town turned into a rural dead end. Or at least it was.
The Masonic Hall was purchased by a fellow that's going to come in and put some businesses in there.
Mayor Ken Stanix is running a village that is suddenly growing again, capturing the interest of property buyers and people looking for a less complicated life.
We figure by the end of next summer, we should be looking at about 1,350 people.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's really has grown by, I want to say, 200 people over the last, it'll be 4 years.
The turnaround began when council tackled a persistent problem, the growing number of old abandoned homes. Mayor Stanix and his councillors put their heads together and came up with an idea. What if they tore down those abandoned homes and sold the lots for $1 apiece? Well, the response was immediate and overwhelming.
We just got floored because we had no idea we would have so many people calling us and trying to get a hold of a lot in Macadam.
This guy just phoned.
Adam and Jess Bronson heard about Macadam while living in Montreal, running their vintage patch business. They sold up and moved east in November, impressed not just by the affordable properties, but by Macadam's rural charm.
There was their older fellow on the other side of town, and we met him one night. They have the Christmas tree night here, and it was around Christmas. But he said, "Need any tools? Need to borrow my truck? Just knock on my door. I'll give you a beer, and we'll get you set up." This is refreshing. This is what life should be.
There's still a lot to do. A Texas businessman has already spoken for this lot, and there are rumors that rail traffic may increase again as CP Rail renews a freight connection to St. John, a promising future for a village with a colorful past. Harry Forrestel, CBC News, Macadam, New Brunswick.
Imagine having 3 elections for prime minister in less than a year. That's a reality for Israelis.
It's a proud day. This is a democracy. You have a great right that you should exercise with confidence.
I support myself, but I respect any decision of any voter.
Exit polls show Benjamin Netanyahu with a slim lead. We'll take you to a polling station in Tel Aviv for the latest after the break. Israelis went to the polls today in their 3rd election in less than a year. Exit polls show Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who is facing corruption charges, with a lead over challenger Benny Gantz. Margaret Evans is there for the vote in Tel Aviv.
We're outside a polling station in Tel Aviv, and the streets here today are especially crowded because people in Israel are given the day off to vote. You can see the cafes behind me are chock-a-block. Employers here won't be so happy about it, though, because this is the 3rd time in less than 12 months that Israelis have gone to the polls. This is a country that's stuck. Turnout is always important in an election, but it's especially so here. The Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, is the longest-serving prime minister in this country's history. He is tied and has been for the past year neck and neck in the polls with his main challenger, Benny Gantz, a former military chief and leader of the Blue and White Party.
I love Netanyahu, and I want him to be the prime minister. I think that he is like perfect for Israel.
I want to see change. I think it's time to refresh, to restart, to reboot, to get something else.
So getting the vote out is important to both of them, but there are concerns today that fears over the coronavirus might prevent people from going to the polls. Israel has taken the threat of the spread very seriously. It's advised citizens here not to travel abroad, and it does have cases of the coronavirus. But it set up 16 special polling stations in the country for people who are under quarantine to go to vote. We visited one of them earlier. We could see people going in with their ID cards under plastic. We could see people in full hazmat suits taking those. They're washing their hands, putting gloves on before going in to cast their ballot. The leaders from all of the major political parties are telling people it's safe to go out and vote and to do so. And from what we're hearing so far, the turnout has been high. It is an unprecedented situation in this country to have voted this many times in the same year. Margaret Evans, CBC News, Tel Aviv.
Everybody's got a Shakira trying to get out.
Their hips definitely don't lie. We'll take you to an exercise class that is teaching them belly dancing and confidence after the break.
Circle.
A seniors group in southwestern Ontario is offering a range of activities, including a weekly belly dancing class. It helps the dancers channel parts of themselves they've never tapped into before.
1, 2, 3, circle, and switch.
When I saw that they had belly dancing, I thought, oh, I got to try that. You know, growing up, you didn't want to move your hips, you didn't want to move your breasts, but, you know, it's like suddenly you're welcome to do it. And after a certain age, who cares? So that's what I did.
Everybody's got a Shakira trying to get out.
It's good for exercise. It exercises all parts of you, including your memory, your mind. And it's really fun when somebody asks you what you're doing down at that centre and you say, I'm doing belly dancing, and they look. I mean, it's such a surprise.
Why do you think people get so surprised when you tell them?
Because I think they're thinking of the dance of the seven veils, you know, but it's not an entertainment for men. It's always women who do it together, and if we get a man coming through here, he usually looks very embarrassed.
Belly dance is supposed to be really inclusive. It shouldn't matter what body type or size you have, whether you're petite and really small or larger, more voluptuous. We can celebrate our bodies no matter what shape they are. I think it's really good for women. And I see it in the older women. I see them get confidence from it, as well as the physical benefits that come with it. And they have a ton of fun. Like, what grandma gets to go out and have fun and shake their booty with their friends?
How cool is that to find that freedom at this point in your life?
Well, you know, it's like stopping wearing makeup, you know? I wear makeup once a week now. Obviously, I don't have any on today. And because who cares? I let my hair go natural and that was it.
Women are, I think in society, we tend to feel more self-conscious. Like, you know, do we let our hair grow? Do we have our makeup on? Do we let our hair go gray? You know, what clothes do we wear? And in the belly dance, you don't have to worry about any of that. You can just let that go. It's pretty fun to tell your grandkids that you're belly dancing.
A fun way to end the show. That's it for us tonight. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody.